It's in the top one. Get the. It's moving. Yeah. Hurry up! It's moving.
I've got it.
No, it's going. It's going.
In today's video, we're going to be talking about the ARV, or Alien Reproduction Vehicle. I'm going to go over some of the basic structures of what has been revealed about this ARV, and then show you guys some video and footage of possible ARVs that have been flying around since the 1940s. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to do kind of a deep dive, not too deep, but about the Alien Reproduction Vehicle, or ARV. Now this has been called several things before. It's been called the flux liner, and then I've heard it being called RAM, or replicant alien machine. You can look some of that up and you'll see some of the images and some of the drawing stuff I'll show you in tonight's video. I've been pretty interested in this for a while, and the information I'm going to disclose here is also in a couple of documentaries out there, and I'll try to link those below in the description so you can check it out. But it's pretty interesting when you start backtracking about the construction of the ARV and how long it's been out. And some of these photos and stuff, what you're seeing here, is coming from information that was given from people firsthand that saw it and saw kind of the openings of it. One of the main pioneers of this was Mark McCandlish, who's no longer with us. He did this drawing that you see here in the background of the ARV. It took him several years to get all the information, but this is what he's come up with. And this was first disclosed in one of Stephen Greer's conference back in 2001, when he got a whole bunch of whistleblowers together. I believe he was the first one to get a conference that big together, and they talked about the ARV. He brought this document that you're seeing there, and then there were photos too of the ARV. You guys see it there. Now, of course, during modern times, it's gotten a little bit more modernized. It's not going to look as what you see here in these photos, but these were taken in the 60s and 70s of the ARV in actual flight. And I think that this information out here is very, very, very important, because I think a lot of stuff that we see nowadays is, of course, stuff that we've created or we reverse engineered for it. And this documentation that I'm going to present to you guys is going to talk a little bit more about the ARV, its construction, how it works, and some of the other information that's been revealed about the ARV over the years. And I do believe, like I said before, I'll beat a dead horse on this. I think a lot of the stuff that we see nowadays is based off the ARV. And I also believe that the Nazis were able to construct some stuff too, as well. They did their own ARVs, and they had their own anti-gravity vehicles that they constructed and put out there, as you guys may know. But I'll touch up on that in another video, and I'll go a little bit more in depth in some of the Nazi technology. Now, I do believe Billy Myers saw something, and what I believe he saw was an ARV. I don't believe he saw some of the stuff that he's claimed to see, and I know I'll get a lot of hate in the comments for that, but a lot of the stuff like this photo here, I just don't believe he took a lot of that. But I think a lot of the other video footage, like things we're seeing here that were taken over 10 years ago and plus, are ARVs, or Alien Reproduction Vehicles. And then there's even video that was taken in South Africa, which you guys are seeing here, of an ARV. And this is something similar to what Billy Myers may have seen, and it looks a lot like the ships that and the UFOs that he's put out there on video and stuff. So I'm going to take a dive into this. I'm going to reveal some of this. Like I said, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on this. I'm just going to reveal to you guys some of the basic information that I know about the ARV, and then talk about the structure. And a lot of this is going to come from documentation from Mark McCandlish that he put out there, and some other video information too as well. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to dive into this and see more about this vehicle and how this thing works and some of the history behind it. All right, for me, the first introduction to the ARV was during a press conference that Stephen Greer had, and I'm going to leave a link below in the description to it. It was done in 2001, and for me, it was one of the biggest and best whistleblower conferences that they had. They had government officials, military personnel, ex-military personnel to come forth and talk about their experiences and what they saw when they either worked in the government or whatever it may be. Now, there was one person in there named Mark McCandlish who caught my eye on this, and he's the one that brought the ARV to my attention. I'm going to let him introduce himself in his own words and then talk about his first introduction to the ARV.
Good morning. My name is Mark McCandlish, and for the last 21 years, I have worked as a conceptual artist for a variety of defense contractors. I've been involved in conceptual artwork. In 1988, in November, a college buddy of mine, an associate by the name of Brad Sorensen, informed me that he had personally witnessed 3 flying saucers at a very large hangar at Norton Air Force Base during the course of an air show that was held on Saturday, November 12, 1988. I subsequently called my congressman from that district. I called his office. This was Congressman George E. Brown Jr., who at the time was the chairman of the Congressional Committee on Space Science and Advanced Technology. I naturally assumed that since this presentation that Brad talked about was for top military brass and certain congressional individuals, that his office must have coordinated this with the local Air Force Office of Public Affairs. A male staff member in Congressman Brown's office not only confirmed the exhibit, but the fact that there were 3 discs at that exhibit. These discs were hovering off the floor without any visible means of support. They were referred to as alien reproduction vehicles, also nicknamed the flux liner because they used high voltage electricity. Let's see, to keep things short, this is a diagram that I made based on a sketch that Brad Sorensen did for me in rough form shortly after he had his sighting, and subsequently cleaned that drawing up and made it much more accurate. And that's the drawing that Dr. Greer is holding there now. Later on, I obtained photographs that were taken in 1967 by a military pilot, Harvey Williams, flying a C-47 for the Air Force at 12,000 feet, approximately 25 miles southwest of Provo, Utah.
Now, real quick interjection here. So he showed 2 photos, and if you guys have been watching my channel for a long time, I do go back to a lot of the photos from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and if that does not resemble a lot of those vehicles, I don't know what is. So some of the stuff, we've mentioned this before, that people may have seen back then may have been ARVs, reverse engineered alien reproduction vehicles that our government went in and created. So that was always something that amazed me when I first saw this conference and saw some of these photos that he held up with this. So I'll at some point in time go back and backtrack and do a complete comparison between a lot of the old photos from the 40s, 50s, and 60s and compare it to what Mark is telling us in this video.
This particular vehicle matches the so-called ARV in all proportions and respects in terms of the detail of the shape of the craft. And this was photographed, as I say, in June or July of June of 1967. I later spoke to a gentleman by the name of Kent Sellen that I met at an air show at Edwards Air Force Base in 1992, the first unveiling publicly of the B-2 bomber. He indicated to me that in 1973, when he was a crew chief working on experimental aircraft at Edwards Air Force Base, that he had unintentionally wandered into an area where there was a classified aircraft, namely the ARV. He described it in detail, and he added other details to the account concerning the configuration and the operation of the vehicle that Brad Sorensen was not aware of. Subsequently, Brad Sorensen met with the famous aeronautical designer Burt Rutan, gave him a copy of this blueprint which you've just been shown. Mr. Rutan felt that it was a joke and put it on his wall as kind of a joke. And a third party confirmed for me later that a Colonel Ray Walsh from Edwards Air Force Base was visiting Mr. Rutan, saw this blueprint on the wall and registered quite a degree of shock and anger, wanted to know where the hell he got this blueprint, because there was in fact such a craft at that time, approximately 1994, 95, in a hangar at Edwards Air Force Base, North Base Complex at that time. Subsequently, I've done a lot of research on this product, this vehicle. I've come across a number of declassified documents that show that the Air Force, as early as 1960, was wind tunnel testing flying saucer shapes up to Mach 20. And I also have declassified NASA documents that show similar shapes. In fact, this is the document here that more or less details the wind tunnel testing up to Mach 20. This is the NASA document right here that was declassified, and it shows a variety of spherical and lenticular shapes that were flight tested up to, or I should say, wind tunnel tested up to Mach 6. I subsequently obtained a copy of an interoffice memo from Hercules Aerospace that describes a particular type of science involving something called zero-point energy and scalar waves. According to Brad Sorensen, this is the basis of the technology for these anti-gravity propulsion systems.
Now, this zero-point energy is kind of above my pay grade, so I'm going to go ahead and let this be read off to you.
Zero-point energy, ZPE, refers to the lowest possible energy that a quantum mechanical system can have, even at absolute zero temperature, 0 Kelvin. It's a fundamental concept in quantum mechanics, stating that even at absolute zero, particles still have energy due to quantum fluctuations. This energy is a direct consequence of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which limits our ability to know both the exact position and momentum of a particle simultaneously.
This particular document here describes 6 different meetings involving the Defense Intelligence Agency and cooperative efforts with the Russian scientific community in investigating this, what is called the fundamental enabling technology that was originally discovered apparently by Nikola Tesla in the early 1900s. Anyway, I could provide you much more detail at a later time, and I am prepared to testify in detail concerning these events and their truthfulness before Congress. Thank you very much.
So Mark is no longer with us. He passed away. You guys can put down in the comments your thoughts on that. I won't say a lot on here, but it was in 2021 that he passed away, but he's no longer with us. But we're going to still get some of the information that he talked about with this ARV, because he did do a lot of in-depth research and stuff onto this to leave us a lot of information about it.
We got together for lunch, and I was doing all these idea sketches of what he described to me about how the components related, and I had, your stereotypical sort of lens-shaped, flying saucer like you see in, more modern movies and stuff. And he said, "Oh no, this is real simple. It's flat on the bottom, sloping sides like a section taken out of a cone, a little ledge, and then a dome on the top." He said the dome is actually the top half of a crew compartment that's like a big ball. I'm pretty sure that was about 12 feet in diameter. There's a central column that goes down through the middle. There's like a flywheel thing on it that, maybe, 6 to 9 feet in diameter. There's 4 ejection seats that are all back to back on this central column above the flywheel type thing. And he says a bunch of oxygen tanks in there that are all around the bottom. And he said the bottom is this huge capacitor array. It's probably, maybe 12 to 14 inches thick. It's shaved off at an angle on the edges, looked like it had been put on a big giant milling machine, and they milled off the edges at a 35-degree angle. He said there's a series of these plate capacitors. I said, well, do you think that this is functioning like the Beethrow-Brown effect, like these experiments were done back in the 60s with levitating things with electrostatic fields and stuff? He said, well, that may be it, but he says they told me, he said, one of the things I saw was that it was using zero-point energy, it was using scalar energy.
So basically, this thing is just a huge Tesla coil. It just uses 2 metallic layers that are stacked on each other with a gap in between, like a large capacitor, and it stores and redirects energy inside the craft. There's a couple other things to this, but in layman terms, that electricity creates like an electromagnetic field that gives this vehicle thrust, and it helps it to rotate and stuff. How that power is regulated is going to be pretty simple too. I was actually pretty amazed at some of the simplicity of this. It's just the leverage that's in there that you actually move back and forth with your hand, and it's going to control the amount of voltage that's given to those 2 capacitor arrays to help this vehicle give it its lift. Now, on the other side, there is kind of like a sphere there that you can use to navigate this vehicle. Pretty simple too with that. I mean, the pilot basically has his hand on this ball, this spherical ball, and it's supposed to be a laser that shoots up inside of there that helps direct this vehicle's direction as it's flying through space. pretty simple if you guys think about how this thing was constructed. Now remember, this was done in the 40s and 50s when they were taking these vehicles and trying to reproduce them with Earth materials. And that in a nutshell is how this thing's going to work. I mean, there's a couple more things behind it, you know, technological wise and stuff like that, but I don't have enough time to get into this video. It's going to be a 30-40 minute video if I did that. But that's basically the structure of how this vehicle is going to work and some of the navigational proportions or parts of this vehicle. And then, of course, this does have oxygen tanks in it, as you guys see there. Now, you have to remember that this was done in the 40s and 50s. So the current ARVs are not going to be looking like this and designed like this. They probably got different ventilation systems for air and stuff. But they apparently have that inside there. And then for seeing, they have something called a synthetic vision system. You guys see those large bubbles at the top of those are actually cameras, and I think it's about 6 or 7 that are located on the older ARV vehicles, and this allows the pilots to see what's in front of them. There's kind of a diagram of what that would look like with those particular cameras that are flashing. Now, of course, the current ARVs may have small cameras or not even have any at all that you can see through the vehicle. And then, of course, there's been reports of some of these vehicles having liquid mercury in it. It circulates in different directions that helps create the thrust and lift off. So there's so many things behind this. It's just hard to kind of pinpoint what's going on unless we have photos of one of these on the inside of our nose, someone who's actually worked on them. Now, of course, there's a lot more to these, and then a lot of people have went in and tried to come up with their own designs, whether they call it the flux line or ARV or something else. There's a lot of patent pendings that were out there on particular type of flying saucer-shaped craft, and I do believe a lot of stuff that we saw and we see even today are ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles, reverse engineered craft that maybe have crashed, or maybe we've retrieved or had some kind of exchange program with alien beings, and they've given us some of this technological advances. I do believe the stuff that Billy Myers saw, some of it was these ARVs, kind of like what you're seeing here. This was taken in South Africa. So you guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this. I just touched the tip of this with this video. And if you guys like videos like this and want to see more, let me know in the comments too. I don't put out a lot of long videos because of the purpose of it just takes a lot longer to do it, but I don't mind doing it. This is something that you guys want to see. I can do more in-depth dives on a lot of people's photos and things that we have out there. So as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, put your comments down below what you think about this, whether you like this type of video or not, what else you want to see going forward in the future. And as always, I appreciate you guys watching and see you in the next video.